One of the weaknesses highlighted in the Lovegrove report was, in the past, a lack of an effective shareholder voice in the board, or perhaps to put it in different language, taxpayer voice being represented in those discussions. Is there a more assertive approach now from those DFT and HMT representatives on the board?
Oh, yes.
So in addition to the Ministerial Task Force, we also have, we've instituted James Stewart's recommendation for a shareholder board, which is chaired by the Permanent Secretary, but includes then a number of non-executive directors whose job is to challenge us on the programme.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to take us back for a moment to contracts and oversight. Mr. Wild, when you appeared before us in July last year, you said that there was a fallback if negotiations could not be concluded, and that, and I quote, in areas where we have a little bit more flexibility to reallocate work, we will do that, but for the majority, it will simply be managing the contracts in a much more assertive and firm manner. I mean, why wasn't that happening before?
Well, I can't. You wouldn't expect me to speak for my predecessors. I can tell you what I found, and I found that the frontline teams of HS2 were under-resourced. That's just a statistic. When I arrived, only 60% of the frontline teams of HS2 they were only resourced to 60%, so it was 40% vacancies. Now that was clearly an unacceptable position. Too many people in HS2 in central roles, not enough people on the ground. And of course that does go to the Chair's point and the Minister about communities, because ultimately the communities need leadership as well. So we filled those roles. We still have a few vacancies, but not very many. We've put some really exceptional leadership in place for our civil engineering.
We've heard, and I've heard privately from some people who've been engaged on the project, that one reason for high vacancy rates, high turnover rates, was culture, that people were prevented or felt that they could not escalate and report problems. Do you accept that characterisation?
I really just can't talk about the past. I can only say what I've done. I certainly did find an organisation of great people that was quite fearful, and it is true, there was opacity to what the actual situation was. What I've tried to do is, like we did on Crossrail, is create the environment where people can speak truth to power, where they can be transparent and not feel that there would be any kind of sanction. Because what you really want in these mega projects is all the voices to tell you where you are and create the environment where people can solve problems together. I don't think we're remotely where I expect us to be in a year's time, but I hope we're on the right trajectory.
Agreements. That document said that there would be a commitment from HS2 Limited to ensure access by trade unions as an integral part of all subsequent work package agreements, so before the civil contracts were signed, and also a commitment by HS2 Limited and its suppliers that the latter will recognise and apply relevant national agreements. Would you accept that those commitments were not in fact written into the contracts?
Yeah, I would. That's, first of all, let's just acknowledge the, as I say, 30,000 people working on this job, and how much actually the success of this job is their productivity and safety. And they're all paying their taxes, and we've got to just acknowledge that a productive workforce is obviously our objective. I think the framework agreement in 2016 was actually quite a breakthrough at the time. You think about it now, though, and actually in that time, for the biggest endeavour this country has ever completed in the construction activity, we've had a relatively harmonious relationship in the industrial relations field. The joint ventures manage the industrial relations, which I think is an important principle, because they are at the front line employing the people that we use. So we've got to keep that principle. I like the framework agreement. I think it's time to refresh it, though. And we've started conversations with the TUC. I aim to meet the General Secretary soon to think about, well, what is the next step? And I think the civil engineering just needs to be brought to a conclusion. And of course, we have to respect the safety all of the things that we've embodied in the framework agreement. The prize really to think about is the system engineering that will start from 3 or 4 years' time onwards, which will endure for a long time. So my commitment is to speak to the General Secretary and sit down and talk about what could we add to this framework agreement to make sure that it, when we start the systems engineering, we can have a successful completion of the project. But I do accept, before my time, clearly the intent of the framework, some of the things haven't really come through. I do accept that. Yeah.
So you're looking at the moment at contract variations on those main work civils contracts, and I accept that some of those contracts are more advanced in terms of completion than others, but is variation to enshrine those commitments in the contracts within the scope of those discussions?
As you say, at least one of these is nearly finished, so it wouldn't be worth doing it. I'll take that away and consider that. We're right in the middle of these negotiations. I'll take that away and consider that. It's not my primary objective. My primary objective with the civil engineering is to get the best deal for the taxpayer and get the job done over the next 2 to 3 years.
I'm not sure where the additional cost will come from, if I may gently challenge you on that point. And I put it to you that had the commitment to ensure that the national agreements were followed across subcontractors as well as the main contractors, then some of the well-advertised problems with some of the subcontractors, such as the Danny Sullivan Group, would not have occurred in the first place.
Look, let me take it away. As you know, we have some of the best agreements here. We insist on PAYE people. We have all the best intent. We're very happy actually with our joint ventures, how they administer their contracts. Let me take that away.